And the aim of this conference is to share Nordic countries' practice of addressing stereotypes relating migration processes and fostering a constructive social and cultural dialogue on a municipal level. My name is Enrique Tessieri. I'm a journalist from a nonprofit media organization called NARA, based in Vilnius. And today we have 3 presentations from 3 Nordic countries. And firstly, we will talk about Antirumor's work in Sweden. Then we will try to learn how to implement best practices from 2015 Finland's migration crisis. And lastly, we will hear about women immigrants and refugee situation in Denmark. Each presentation will last about 40 minutes, and then we will have some time for the questions. So if you have any questions anytime, write it down in the chat box at the bottom, or you can turn on your microphone and say it out loud at the end of each presentation. And what we need to add, that the conference is being simultaneously interpreted. So if you want to hear it in Lithuanian, press the button interpretation at the bottom of the screen. So I think that we can start our conference, and let's start with a presentation, The Case of Antirumor's work by Evelina Lundqvist and Helena Rojas. Welcome.
Thank you.
Evelina is a co-founder of Intercultural Cities Sweden and the impact agency The Good Tribe. She's an expert on sustainable development, communication, project and work design, and facilitation. And Helena Rojas is a director of development at Botkyrka municipality, the most ethnically and religiously mixed municipality in Sweden. And she's an expert on intercultural development, human rights, and equality in the public sector, from human resources to urban planning. So welcome, Evelina and Helena, and the screen is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to add to my presentation is that Evelina and I are actually co-founders of Intercultural Cities Sweden. And so we are active in that association together as well.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. So I will start sharing my screen and hope that the technology gods are all with us. In a second. So
I have to jump up some slides, Evelina.
Yes, sorry about that. So now I think it should work now. Can you see the presentation? Yes.
Loading now, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Yes. So I will do a short introduction for you, and then I will hand over to Helena again. So my name is Evelina Lundqvist. As I was introduced in the beginning, I'm one of the co-founders of Intercultural Cities Sweden, and I also run the impact agency, The Good Tribe, since quite a few years already. And we will be talking to you today about the case for Antirumor's work and a short introduction, as I said, and then we will talk about Botkyrka, where Helena is the development director. And Botkyrka has done a lot of work with the intercultural approach and with Antirumor's work over the years. So I think that you will find a lot of useful information there. And also please ask us questions. I think it's good to do that maybe at the end of the presentation, but also if you have anything that for understanding purposes, just tell us during the presentation as well, so that everything is clear for everybody. Awesome. So we will actually start with a few questions in the chat and invite you to participate writing in the chat. We will be talking about rumors now for the coming half hour or so. And we will start with a question to all of you participating. Have you ever heard a rumor? Write yes or no in the chat now, please. Any kind of rumor. Have you ever heard a rumor? It seems like many of you have. Awesome. We have the next question for you. Keep writing. Have you ever shared or spread a rumor that you have heard? Have you ever shared or spread a rumor that you have heard about something you've heard about something somebody told you. Yes. Okay, I have another question for you. Just keep writing. Have you ever spread a rumor and afterwards thought, maybe I shouldn't have done that? Have you ever had that feeling when you maybe found out that maybe it wasn't true, maybe it was exaggerated, maybe it was just sensitive, you shouldn't have done it? I think most of us have. This is kind of the important role that rumors play in society, of spreading information that can be true or not true very fast. Yes, I admit it. I think that all of us can admit to that. So the case, thank you very much for answering the chat. So the case for Antirumor's work, what we will actually be talking about now, the coming half hour, 40 minutes, is a collaboration between stakeholders to counteract rumors, moving from stereotypes to knowledge. And why this is so important is because rumors can have a devastating effect on individuals or communities or even larger scale politics. And we've seen that repeatedly throughout history, and of course now also maybe even more so with fake news and disinformation also on the radar of everybody. Just for kind of a basic understanding of the role of rumors is also firstly, we are thinking individuals, but to make reality somewhat easier to understand and to deal with, to cope with, we create stereotypes in our minds. Very simplified images of people based on maybe their looks or how they speak, what we think they're from. All of these are just simplified images of reality that we need to cope with everyday life. Some of them, however, can be troublesome because when we take these stereotypes and reflect them onto our perceived reality, then we start to feel things by something that we don't understand. We might feel threatened, we might feel inferior or superior, depending on these stereotypes in our brain. And the even worse, the next step might then be what is even worse is when we start acting on these stereotypes and prejudices. It might lead to discrimination, where people are actually hurt in various ways by our prejudice. So this is why it's also so important to catch this early on. And the rumor factor is a fire for all of these factors. It increases all of these, the effects of all of these. Yes. What we are promoting with Antirumor's work is a political and social initiative to promote critical thinking. And we can all, in our private lives, in our family lives, on the workplace, among friends, colleagues, we can do a lot to disseminate rumors and to stop rumors. So over to you, Helena.
Thank you, Evelina. Yes, well, as I was presented, I am Director of Development at the municipality of Botkyrka, that's in the Stockholm area. And we have actually been working with storytelling for about, you could say, 20 years. And that the reason for that, and this is part of the presentation, is that you have to catch the things that are happening and do something constructive out of them. And what happened in Botkyrka was a journalist, a very well-known journalist in Sweden, came and did a documentary in Botkyrka that was about a part of Botkyrka that was very stigmatizing, and the youth in Botkyrka reacted. And that was the starting point, a dialogue between the politicians and the youth to decide, at the political level, to take the power of our storytelling, not only telling the good things, but both the good things and the more complicated things. but from our point of view. And in that line, you could say that Antirumor's work was a natural step. Evelina, you can take the next slide because, well, everything is about using anti-rumors and storytelling as a tool for intercultural development that I will tell some about. You can lägga upp hela. Yes, and also we are not only in the national, environment. We're in an international environment, and we have been members of the Council of Europe's city network, Intercultural Cities, and actually we have been that for over 10 years, and that's the reason that we, at last, in I think it's 3 years now, Evelina, that we decided to create the Swedish network for intercultural cities, because this is not only happening in Sweden, it's happening in your country as well. The agenda worldwide has always been dominated by governments and media, and it's in the cities that most strangers have to learn to live together. And this, when you talk about it from that point of view, from the governments and media have the power, and and if it's good media, good, but otherwise you lose control. So that's why it's so important for us at the local level to take the power of what we can take to the power, and it's storytelling and anti-rumors are two very important things. Next slide, Evelina. Yes, and I think it was told in the beginning, but Botkyrka in Swedish, Sweden has only 10 million inhabitants. You're not that big either, but in a European context, we are a small country. And Botkyrka is like a semi-big municipality in Sweden. We are 95,000 inhabitants, but we are also the most ethnic and religious diverse municipality in the whole Sweden. We have 58% of all the population has an immigrant, a family of migration, like me, for example. I have a Spanish background from the beginning. But also, in these figures, you see the transformation that's going on, very obvious in Botkyrka, but in the whole Sweden. And that is that 87.5% of all the youth from 0 to 18 are born in Sweden. And in our municipality, we have 163 nationalities and 100 languages are spoken. And what you see here is our youth council that reflects, we have everything from rural to urban areas in our municipality. And our youth council has been very active in the work towards from multicultural to intercultural. And this is that I'm going to read now is something that they said and have been leading us. They put this line 10 years ago already, and it's that the new generations, they refer to themselves, need to be proud of our family history and identity and still be Swedes. Above all, we do not want to be seen as non-Swedes. So every day, because of their appearance, they have to, they get the question, where are you from? And they have learned actually strategies to handle this, and we are also supporting them not to answer what other people want them to answer. They could say, I'm from Botkyrka. No, but where are you from? No, I'm from Halunda. No, but where are you from? And they just look at them and say, I'm from my mother's belly, and they just don't want to. And this is just like a bit of fun, but it's very serious, it's because the majority, flows in society, a lot of them just, capitulating into them and just say, okay, I'm not from here. But that's very important for them to be able to be Swedes and not have to say no to their family history to become Swedes. Evelina, next, please. Evelina, gick det inte eller?
Yes, it should be working.
Okay, yeah. It's a bit frustrating when I can't do it myself, but I know you're perfect. Sorry. Yeah, and why is Botkyrka doing this? You see Botkyrka in the middle of all the Stockholm municipalities in the map. Well, it's actually that's not, not only Botkyrka, but Stockholm region is one of the most segregated regions in Europe. And this has been for long, and we have to break this. And the situation, the most important, talking about our youth, the situation is inherited the next generation. So that is a very politically, very important to do something about. We are also the second poorest municipality, even though we are like getting better and better. And thanks to our politics and policies, I would say. And a very important thing to say is that poverty and visible diversity correlate, so talking about racism, diversity is easier if you're from the US, and white from the US, or if you're from a youth from Afghanistan, for example. So, this poverty and visible diversity correlate. And then also Sweden is a country that has had a self-image as an anti-racist. We have been pro-human rights in the world and everything. And I don't say that Sweden is a bad country, but we have a lot of work to do, about our self-image, because it's this denial that, that the race, we are not racist, we are not creating racism, that makes the situation not develop enough quick. And the situation here in Sweden is that people from different backgrounds don't meet, are isolated from another alienated. Next picture, Evelina. Yeah, and that's, talking about this happening with the journalist that made this story about Botkyrka. Everything about storytelling and Antirumor's work is about, going from this black and white picture to give our, the rumor or the storytelling colors. So it's not about lying at all, it's just putting more nuances. And as Evelina said, rumors are often an exaggeration of truth. Sometimes they're lies, but mostly they're exaggeration of truth. Like in Botkyrka, one of the rumors that we worked with is that all the youth in the north parts are criminals. And that's of course not true, so people from outside say, oh, all the youth in Botkyrka are criminals. No, maybe 1-2%, so you have to carry this double luggage that not only this is not true, but you have to meet people that expect that maybe you're a criminal. That's no good at all. So storytelling and Antirumor's work are two aspects of taking power of the story of the municipality. Next picture, Evelina. Yeah. And as I told you, the step we took, and I can really recommend it if maybe some of you already are part of the Council of Europe's Intercultural Cities. I don't know if you are from cities, but this is a very good recommendation because actually being a part of this network enabled us to connect with Barcelona, that was the city in the world to create this concept. Antirumor's work actually, and it was Daniel de Torres Barderi that was actually a politician by then in Barcelona, and it's a bit different in Barcelona than it is in Sweden or in Spain compared to Sweden, because the politicians have he had a similar role that I have, but I am not political. But he puts all this work into action together with the administration, and Barcelona is super well known about this. And then the Council of Europe put in this as a good practice, and then we created a project where we were like 11 cities from the network that decided to do this work at the same time and together, and it was called C4I. Communication for integration. So it was like communication was the key. And you can see there which cities there was. And there in the picture, we are everyone visiting one of the cities in that were part of this in Portugal. And they, as a part of their anti-rumors work, had made this art in the buildings. You know, this is a socioeconomic vulnerable area, and then they just also use arts to, you know, to pimp up the area, and also at the same time communicate this work about anti-rumors. So this is a very beautiful area to visit, actually. Next step, Evelina, next slide. Yeah, and back to Botkyrka then. If you want to put an anti-rumors work in your municipality, or actually several of the cities that, or some, I wouldn't say several, but some, like Erlangen in Germany, worked actually, there was an enterprise, Siemens, a big enterprise that, you know, established anti-rumors work in their policy of their enterprise. So it's not only for cities, but mostly for cities, but you can do it in other ways as well. So from the city perspective, also always done in the bigger framework, because, you know, when you start doing the work, it's very local and actually quite simple, because everything that can make a change must be simple in the way it's done. But then, of course, it's a bigger thinking behind. And of course, the political decision at the municipality, and also participation from all kinds of citizens. That means not only migrant background, because, you know, in Sweden, but I think in maybe in your country as well, the typical thing is that people that have migrant background are the ones that work with integration and this kind of thing. So it was very important to make the bigger, more inclusive for everyone in the municipality. And it's done with scientific basis. We in Botkyrka made as scientific research on how rumors. One of our researchers at a local scientific center that's called the Multicultural Center made this, historical review on how rumors, and we got to know that there's actually anti-rumors science. We didn't know that. So this is scientifically based. And of course, collaboration between civil society, research, and administration. We have to do this together. And then training of anti-rumor agents. And that's how I got to know Evelina, because we hired Evelina and her enterprise to do this work in Botkyrka, and that's how we started to talk, and that's how the national network actually was established later. We had anti-rumor cafes. That is, in a nice way, just find ways to talk, because what we say about rumors, that information is not enough. You need interaction, because you can't only say, no, this is not true, because that doesn't get to the people, say, oh yes, but I think it's true, so you have to talk about it. And then this exchange, of course, with other intercultural cities, but of course, now there is a lot of knowledge. So if you wanted to start to do this, there's a lot of knowledge and support to get from other cities that have done, we have done something good, some things better, and some things we could have done better. Then you can get not having to reinvent the wheel, as we say. And we did this also, decided in Botkyrka. By that time, we had a new platform that we actually created with two other Swedish cities. That's called UNESCO Looks. That's actually created to do this kind of work, to find solutions to social complex situations or problems or challenges. And it's UNESCO Looks. And so we worked in that environment as well, to be able also to disseminate our findings, our experiences, and so on. Next picture, Evelina. Yes, and to continue with the public administration, the role of the public administration is that we to be able to do this kind of work, we needed also kind of mindset, about what's the role of the public administration. It's not that you can start doing this, meanwhile, but sooner or later it's needed. We need a governance that can navigate in complexity, and that means that we can do everything as we always have. We have to have some self-criticism, and mainly, mostly flexible organization. So if you say, no, this is important to do, but we can't do it because it's not within our competence or mandate, and everything is how you understand your role as well, and you put that to make the life better for your citizens. So we have to reformulate ourselves to be able to handle the challenges of today. And this is like an ongoing change of culture in the municipalities, not from one day to another, but it needs to get started. And then leadership, of course, that enables change. Shortly, we say, both politicians and civil servants, is if you choose to see, to see challenges, to see problems, or if you choose not to see them. And in Botkyrka, our politicians actually have chosen to see this, and also then because of that, more and more civil servants. And it's both ways, because sometimes I think civil servants are more like prepared, of course, to do this work. So it's not all the politicians, all the civil servants, but it must be some kind of, moving in that direction all the time. And the big step to take, that's the intercultural step, is that the municipality in its role as a partner, because that's what interculturality is compared to multiculturalism, is that you see that every person in each group, the multiculturalists, that Turkish people are like this, Spanish people like that, and the interculturalists that you see that they're part of a context, but they're also individuals, and it's human rights, you could say. Interculturalism, you could say it's multiculturalism and human rights that gets interculturalism. Next step, Evelina. Yeah, and we have a strategy for equality, and before this strategy, we have a special strategy for intercultural development. But we have several, for gender equality, for disabled people rights, for public health, and honor-related violence, and these kind of things. And we thought that we have to have the same mindset in everyone. So we created the strategy for equality, and every dimension of equality is not there, but this was a big cross-political work done, from left to right, to find a common way of seeing what challenge was about to be solved. And of course, the way to solve it is ideologically. So if the left party will rule, it would be done in some way. And if the moderate party will do it, it would be done in some other way, but they have the same idea on what to achieve. And this is only what is said in about it. We have a chapter for each dimension. And this is actually very, 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 very important that it is said cross-political. So this was a work that took about 2 years. And I was what they call it like ghostwriter. My role with another colleague was to listen to the politicians talking and try to find this middle way that wasn't like too thin, But these are cross-political words. And the most important, I would say, is that the lack of nuances in the debate about integration politics, and the idea that it's something that has failed by visualize a negative image of citizens. So only that, to take a step back from the negative image of some citizens. It also indicates that integration, they mean the national discourse, indicates that integration between new and old Swedes is impossible. In Botkyrka, it's possible, thanks to our transformation process from multicultural to an intercultural society. And this is, as you can understand, these are cross-political words and very, very important for us to be able to make the work we do. Next, Evelina. And this is just to go back to the human rights dimension of the work. And I could do a longer presentation about this. We have a short presentation, so yeah, and some other times could go back and tell more about this. But you know, we have different kinds of status of immigrants in Sweden, as you probably have. A guest worker comes to Sweden and does some work and gets back to their country, and they have only economic rights. But then the other three, and these are ongoing all the time, but in Sweden the politics are multicultural, but at the same time all are like in motion at the same time. That assimilation is that you are, you know, you get your civil and social rights, but you have to be accepted. You have to deny your cultural rights and your human right to identity. You have to like transform into Sweden. That's very, you know, you can't really understand what that means. And the multiculturalism, and this is the most important part, multiculturalism and interculturalism are, they're no different in the set of rights that you are getting. When multiculturalism, you get your cultural rights and your right to identity, and also in interculturalism. But the interculturalism, you know, involves that we as an administration, we can't know fully, you know, understand the situation without involving community. So community building and cohesion is the difference between multiculturalism and interculturalism as we understand it. Next, Evelina. Yeah, and this, I don't know if the time is running, Evelina, but yeah. So the decision to take this step from multicultural to intercultural is that, you know, this question, to whom does the city belong? Because we are an administration, but, you know, the city is also a place, either there would be an administration or not, where people are living their lives, and about choosing to see, you know, so we can choose to see the whole population, everything that's going on in the city, or choose only to see one part. And if we only choose to see one part, things will be, you know, happening anyway. And if it's a challenge or a problem, it can deepen because we choose not to see it, you know. So that's, you know, and this is a proactive, positive way of saying the city belongs to everyone that's in the city. And from our point of view, the need for an intercultural approach was also this, that, you know, we have had the immigration in Sweden for, you know, 70 years now, 60, 70 years, and still this youth get the question, where are you from? You know, it's so exhausting. So mixed population and multicultural identity is the new normal. And cultural belonging is not static. That's about from multicultural to intercultural. Personal identity is an individual choice and cannot be categorized by society. And the people from different ethnic origin than Swedish are not a homogeneous group. Inclusive politics enable individuals to take responsibility for their community. This is very crucial. And social cohesion requires an inclusive common ground. Openness for individual diversity is essential. So that's a mindset that's needed. And the feeling of belonging, of course, being seen and included, getting back to whom does the city belong. It's a fundamental process of breaking segregation and its negative effects. That is very important as well. You know, this is our main anti-segregation strategy in Botkyrka, to work with interculturality. Next, Evelina. Yeah, then it's your turn, Evelina.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Helena. So I think to just say a few words on what Antirumor's work is in practice among citizens. This is kind of where we met, as Helena mentioned, and our task was to do the work together with citizens. So together with a journalist, I wrote a handbook on how to stop rumors among citizens and civil society organizations. And it's basically a method, a discussion method, methodology on how to talk to people about room. So we wrote the book and distributed it among civil society organizations in the municipality. We organized anti-rumor cafes, which Helena also mentioned briefly earlier. We did it for several different target groups. We did it for youth, we did it for senior citizens, we did it at a festival and the library. So it was like really different target groups, and our anti-rumor agents, which is a term which is also used for people who are trained in this discussion methodology. They met with people and started talking to them about what rumors.
Žmonės, kurie mokyti dirbti šioje srityje, susitikinėjo su žmonėmis, klausė, kokius gandus žinote, kaip žinote, ar jie yra tiesa.
I hear is not correct. And really at the core of this methodology is to think critically about everything that you hear. And really about everything that you hear. Is it really true? How do I know it's true? So this is also something that is taught in Swedish schools, but we also notice that it needs an ongoing discussion, because there are always like new situations, new rumors coming up, or base derivatives of rumors that you've already heard the last couple of 100 years. That we have to fight with still today. So the anti-rumors method in practice is really about talking to each other and building up the courage to talk to your neighbor, talk to your colleagues, and say, even if it's like in a situation, a meeting at the workplace, to build up the courage to say, okay, is this really true? And that can be really tricky, because it's difficult to be the person in the room who says, I don't know if this is true. So it's really about feeling training to feel safe to have that conversation. And I think it's also important to mention that the anti-rumor method as such is not for extremists. It's really for the general population in the society that consume all kinds of news, that hang out on the playground. It's really like the average citizen that you can reach with this method. And they are also voters. They could be the ones to discriminate. So and just a few examples, they are really important to reach these people. So these photos that you see now is basically a collage from the project that we did, including writing this handbook with the method. There is also a lot written from Antirumors Global and also from the project that Helena mentioned, which describes the method and the science behind it. So there's a lot of reading. If you want to engage more in this, there's a lot of reading also that is already out there from Antirumors Global and from the project that Helena mentioned. Let's see else. Yes, so what recommendations do we have, Helena? If somebody in the room here would like to start with an anti-rumor strategy or intercultural approach strategy.
Like I think I said already, but not maybe this clear, is that it needs to be a bottom-up strategy. It must be an interest. You have to create, or you have to find the citizens that have this interest, as we did, when this happened with the journalists, and we caught it and started to work with it. Bottom-up strategy. The importance of that is also a strong collaborative, I can't say it in English, leadership to facilitate the creation and consolidation of social networks. So it's both political and civil servants, So we have to enable. So now our role is to enable this. Then, we have to collaborate these three, civil society, administration, and also research. This UNESCO Lux, platform that we created, but that's maybe possible to do in other ways. But it's always good to have some kind of research following the process, either you have a platform or not. And it creates a new alignment of responsibilities. From the beginning, we think that the administration needs to do everything, but you see that it's not like that. You create long-term sustainability if you share responsibilities in a better way. And to share responsibility, you have to give, some kind of power, not keeping all the power to yourself. And the citizens' engagement, it's not crucial just for policy success, but also, as I said, policy sustainability. But also it empowers the bridge builders and not the gatekeepers. I mean, empowers those who want to try new steps, to do something new, than the ones that want to do everything as it always has been done. And this word dignity is very central in the concept of interculturality, because dignity is something every person can, understand, most every person. And but an important point of view is that if you have a mindset that you're always trying, you're meeting with other people to be dignifying towards that person that maybe is in a more vulnerable situation, then probably you are doing, you will change your way of doing things a bit. And the importance here about dignity is that you can't say, now I gave dignity. It's up to the person that you're trying to meet to say, I feel I feel dignified. We have to very concrete enable space for interaction, and also very important, that's the whole idea about the Antirumor's technique. It's to don't avoid conflict, expect it, manage it. It's also the intercultural approach. It's part of human life, conflicts, but the most successful people and organization will be the ones that are good in handling conflicts before they deepen, do something and not wait, or not close your eyes. And actually, two methods that we work with in our organization, Antirumor Sweden, of course, also in Botkyrka, as I use them, is anti-rumor and dilemma solving. Dilemma solving is actually a concept that we developed in Botkyrka, that I developed with a pedagogue that also became a good practice at the Council of Europe. So that, and now our organization work with those two, among others, of course. And and also basic, recognize difference, emphasize similarities, because we're all human beings and we all have needs and assets, and that's what we have to see. So that's about the recommendations I had that I think about. Now, I don't know, Evelina, if you want to say something, add something to that.
Yes, I think our time is up, but we would like to leave dear listeners, viewers, with two questions. How might your there should be another. Tolerance is not enough. It should be the whole thing. So we would like to leave you with two questions. How might your city, municipality benefit from Antirumor's work? What is the work that you have to put in? And how might your city, municipality benefit from an intercultural approach? And we're very happy to accept questions from you now, or please feel free to reach out to us afterwards. These two questions are very central as an entry point into this kind of work. So thank you so much for listening. I don't know if we have time for questions. Please ask questions. The moderator, Inter, you have to save.
Just a couple of minutes. Thank you, Evelina and Helena. I hope that this presentation will inspire people working in migration field in Lithuania to fight with rumors in their communities, because the listeners work in migration field in different municipalities of Lithuania, and maybe someone wants to share his or their experience, how you deal with rumors in your daily work, or have any questions to our speakers. I have some questions too, so maybe I can ask mine firstly, and at that time you can write down your questions.
Evelina,
should I stop the screen
sharing? Yes.
I will.
So what changes do you see in people's perception of migrants after several years of your work?
It's a slow change, but we are always a part of the debate that's going on. It's challenging for all of us, in the whole world right now. So I would say you can never, do you hear me? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can never say, you can never like say, oh, we know that this change has made because of this, but we can say and really truly believe, and we see, the change I would say is that our youth, it's the tillit, Evelina,
the trust.
Yeah, well, yeah, trust. Oh, sorry, it was, yeah, the trust. It's a long-term like trust between the administration and our citizens. I would say that that working with this kind of issues creates like trust. But of course, it will. We are 95,000, but we have good relations. We have this ongoing dialogue, not only in this part. So it's a way for us to give also hope for the future. And there's so many things that we try, so it's here now, but also in the long term, that our youth will believe in the future. And also the older people, they think that we try to handle these things, and they feel some kind of something that's positive, that I think is very psychologically important. So I think, and we have done surveys after a project, but it's, you can say that was right then, but you don't know, I can't say more than that. But I think we create a culture of hope, you could say, and that this is an easy tool, actually. The Antirumor, Evelina is the expert in training in antirumor agents. We call them antirumor agents, and that's the Barcelona concept from the beginning, but we have transformed it to our setting, the Swedish setting. And I want to say, this is very important, because we talk in general about rumors, that 80%, and this is said also at the Council of Europe, about, and Daniel de Torres, the one that created this, is about 80% of all the rumors, are the same in every country. But 20% is like an adaptation. There will be different groups of migrants, but the discourse is the same. They're taking our jobs, they're taking our that is the same. But you have to make an adaptation to your municipality, city, or country. But when you do that, you create a culture of hope, I would say. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. And we have one more question from Enrique. It's written in the chat. I will say it out loud. How and where do you challenge rumors? What role does the media play? And do you have good relations with the media?
Yeah, we have with local media. We have good relations. There were one part within the project. Also, there was a whole bilaga, Evelina. my English today.
Appendix.
Yeah, appendix in one of the local, only about rumors and only about this. So they have been supporting us, the local media, but at the national level, it's more needed, more that we as a municipality, Botkyrka is seen as a progressive municipality that they listen to, but the media is very important, actually, but it's more complicated to work with national media than local media.
Thank you. And we have one more question from Karolis.
Yes.
Hi,
can you hear me?
Karolis.
Yes. Hello. Sorry, I'm in a car and I'm in Lithuania. I'm just going to the Rukla reception center now. Yeah, just for those who don't know me, so I'm Karolis, integration officer from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees for the Nordic and Baltic countries. So first of all, thank you very much for all the participants and for the speakers, especially from Denmark, Finland, and Sweden, for giving this opportunity for local actors actually to familiarize themselves with the various strategies. And especially, of course, we are really interested in the response at the local level, because we know the anti-rumors, inclusion and integration usually happens at the local level. So I think that's very important. And thank you very much, Evelina and Helena, for really giving these tips that, it's not necessary, there is only a way to go about it. Like, it's not just about, having this strategy, and working from the top to the bottom, but also, engaging the civil society and having this both, I think, vertical and horizontal coordination. So from our office, that's why we're really happy to have you here, because I think your your initiatives and your action planning is really amazing. I mean, of course, there is no any ideal situation, but what you have been done so far in Botkyrka is really amazing. And I think that we really do hope that it might inspire the local actors in Lithuania could be inspired by your experiences. And for me, the very tiny question, you really talked a lot about your local level action planning. And I think your last slide on the recommendations and tips, it's really important because it shows that it's not just about a political will, but it's also about, you know, individual commitments that you can do with the civil society and local level grassroots movements. But my question is how important international networks as a Council of Europe Intercultural City Program is, because we know that in the Baltic countries, there is only one city who has joined Intercultural City Network, which is Jonava. And I'm, by the way, now next to Jonava. So, I mean, any tips for the Lithuanian local level actors on the international networks and importance of these networks to improve actually integration work? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Karolis, and nice to see you again. Yes, I would say I can only speak for myself as Director of Development in Botkyrka, you know, and also seeing the importance of the political, you know, commitment. But I can't even imagine that we would still be doing all this, you know. I have been 16 years in the municipality, and we have been part of the Intercultural Cities for 12 years, I think, and also another UNESCO platform, European Coalition of Cities Against Racism. So these two, I don't think, and especially intercultural cities, I would say, I don't think we would have found endurance to continue year after year after year after year without the international support. And actually, intercultural cities, the Council of Europe's intercultural cities, they are so helpful all the time. You know, when you have a challenge, they are fantastic. I couldn't even imagine that the international organization will be so helpful. You know, it could be, you know, there's one time, Irena Gidikova, the boss of the whole thing there, she said, I can come to Sweden the day after tomorrow if you need me to, you know, and I don't know if she could do that today, but it was a crucial moment. She just said, if you need me, Helena, I will come, you know, and I mean that they just do everything they can to support us. They understand that this is a challenging work at the local level and they support us. So for me as a civil servant, but I think also the politicians, you know, from time to time to feel like, wow, you know, the Council of Europe is watching us and thinking that we do a good work, you know, it's endurance, you know, it gives long-term sustainability and commitment. So yes, if you can start working to get part of different, you know, and intercultural cities, I would say has been special, very special for me to have, you know, the strength to continue year after year.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you a lot. The time is running out, so let's move forward. And our next presentation is called Migrant Tales, Exposing Mistakes, Learning and Implementing Best Practices of Finland's 2015 Refugee Crisis by Enrique Tessieri. He is a journalist and sociologist. I hear an echo. Yeah, no, he's a journalist and sociologist who teaches and works with migrants in Finland. And also he's an editor of Migrant Tales and has written numerous articles and 3 books on topics like cultural diversity, immigration policy, empowerment of migrants and minorities in society. So welcome, Enrique.
Thank you very much, and a pleasure to be here. And thank you very much for inviting me and sharing, you know, our experiences in Finland. And let me put here. Is that okay now? You can see it.
Yeah.
I think what is really important, you know, when we start off, I mean, I'm looking at Finland from the perspective of we had some reaction, you know, to the large amount of asylum seekers that came here, and looking at those reactions, what can we learn from them? So I think, you know, one of the important things that we have to keep in mind is this thing, that our attitude and treatment of migrants reveal a lot about who we are and our worst and best qualities as a society. So I wish Lithuania a lot of luck and wisdom, you know, now when more asylum seekers come to your country. This talk will be basically, we'll look at asylum reception centers, what mistakes they made. Look at the law, there were changes in the law. Education policies. I am also a teacher at a folk high school near Mikkeli, which is about 230 kilometers northeast of Helsinki. And 99% of our students were born elsewhere, and many are former asylum seekers. So, and then look at political discourse in the media. Okay, so here in the first picture the first slide that I want to show you is one of our students, Rafal Rada Mosa, tells about her journey to Finland from Iraq, and it took about over a year to come here. Okay, Finland, as you know, is a Nordic country in the northeastern corner of Europe. And if you look at way up north in Tornio, that's when most of the asylum seekers came to Finland. Okay, I guess for the Lithuanians, you're well aware of Upton Sinclair. And Upton Sinclair was a very famous US writer who wrote about a Lithuanian family, a Jurgis Rutkus, who went to work for the stockyards in Chicago. And he mentioned, and they wrote about all the exploitation and terrible conditions that they lived there. And thanks to this book, there came a lot of changes in the law. The Buenos Aires Herald, I was born in Argentina myself, and there's this English language newspaper that wrote about the disappearances during the Dirty War. As you remember and may know, about 30,000 people disappeared during the Dirty War. It was a horrible war. And Migrant Tales was founded in 2007, 14 years ago. And thanks to Migrant Tales, I have been able to get a firsthand view of the asylum situation here in Finland, how it's developed, the political discourse, and all the the debate that's in society. Our aim is to be a blog community that debates some of the salient issues facing immigrants and minorities in Finland and elsewhere. It aims to be a voice, this is important, a voice for those whose views and situation are understood poorly and heard faintly by the media, politicians, and public. So you can imagine, if you're going to start writing about migrant stories, about asylum seekers, there are tons of stories that you can access because the local media doesn't write about them. And some of these stories are very big. Okay, just a little background information. In Finland, as you can see, Finland hasn't been a country that has had a lot of migrants. It has a lot of emigrants, like Lithuania. I think many hundreds of thousands of Lithuanians have emigrated to other countries. In Finland, if you look at 1860 to 1999, about over 1.2 million Finns have emigrated, out of Finland. So we are a country of emigrants, but not of immigrants per se. Okay. Okay, so we have that. So mostly, I mean, if you look at this decade, last decade, there's about 4,000 asylum seekers that come to Finland every year. But then in 2015, it shot up to 32,476. Now, that's a record considering that in Finland before, let's say in 1921, we had 6,000 Russian refugees coming to Finland, escaping the Bolshevik Revolution, and they came to Finland. So we'll continue. And then if we look at the different groups that came here, the biggest were the Iraqis, then the Afghans, Somalis, Syrians, and Albanians. And, the many Iraqis that I met during those first years after 2015, I asked them, why did you come to Finland? Because of the education system. They thought that Finland was a country that respected human rights, and the education system was very good, and that's why they came to here. Now, as you can tell from the title, I don't call this a refugee crisis per se. I mean, if you look at Europeans that went to the Americas in the 19th century and early 20th century, there were millions who went there. Was that a crisis? People move around. It has always been, you know, a natural thing for people to emigrate, immigrate, and so forth. Okay, let's take a look here. So we have here. So as you can imagine, this forced the government to act rapidly, and they had to, you know, to establish asylum reception centers throughout the country. At the beginning of 2015, there were 18. Then at the end, there were 142, and then it went up to 222, and then it's been on the downward trend after that. At the end of 2015, many of these asylum reception centers suffered attacks, arson attacks, and so forth. Okay, so it's sort of like a schizophrenic situation, isn't it? On the one side, we have people who are saying, "Yeah, welcome," with open arms, and you know, we're happy you're here, and so forth. And then on the other side, we have these xenophobic, anti-immigration, racists who are saying, "No, no, no, we don't want you here," and so forth. So expect that. Also, the coming of so many asylum seekers gave impetus and more force to pretty anti-xenophobic, Islamophobic groups. Our biggest party, our biggest opposition party, is called the Finns Party. It's on the upper left-hand side. It's like the Sverige Demokraten. And imagine that in 2007, they had 5 MPs, but then in the 2011 election, it went up to 39. And guess what was the big theme there? Anti-EU and anti-immigrant discourse. Okay, I don't know if you have the Soldiers of Odin in Lithuania. Then we have a neo-Nazi group called the Suomen Vastarintaliike, which has been abolished here in Finland. And then we have other sort of like Islamophobic groups here. Okay, but let's go now down to the nitty-gritty. Let's take a look at some of the mistakes and the challenges, when so many migrants came to Finland. The first one, we'll take a look at the asylum reception centers. And if you can imagine, over 32,000 people come to Finland, and you have to house them immediately, and then you have to get staff, to take care of them, and sort of like run a well-managed asylum reception center. So some of the biggest challenges were finding qualified staff. Little oversight. I'm not saying every asylum reception center. Little oversight, inappropriate, sometimes racist behavior by the staff. Management not accessible to the reception center's residents. Difficulties to access the reception center's nurse and other staff. And then the security force, security guards were, I mean, not all, but many stories about them being quite violent with the immigrants. And this is a good example. One guy is smoking in his room. He's not supposed to smoke in his room. And then a staff member goes there and says, "Who was smoking?" "No one is smoking." And then, then they call the police. 4 squad cars come to the reception centers with, I don't know, 6, 8 policemen to work out this problem. So we could say it's a little bit exaggerated, the response, towards this. Okay, I spoke with Otto Leppä, who has he's in charge of the Suonsaari Asylum Reception Center. And by the way, he sends regards to all of you. And he gave me I gave Lucas his contact information. So if you want to get in touch with him, he's a Red Cross employee. You can get in touch with him, and he can give you, answer your questions and things like that. But I think he's a very sensible person and knows his stuff really well. Okay, so getting qualified staff. That was the big thing. And not only getting qualified staff, but also culturally diverse, that they work in these kinds of situations. And also, one mistake that was made was, oh, you're a foreigner, so you can deal with foreigners. And I think that's a poor, maybe sometimes they deal even worse, but with other foreigners. Management is accessible. Managers should not make promises they cannot keep. A good manager is interested in the well-being of the people serving. And then Otto Leppa says that one important thing is that asylum seekers must be active inside and outside the reception center, meaning they must get involved in sports or voluntary work or whatever. But this is one of the negative parts of Finland, is that some of these asylum seekers have been waiting 6 years for their residence permit. So you can imagine staying at a reception center, and if you don't study and don't do anything, that's horrible. Okay, he says that they made a very big effort to teach asylum seekers about the local culture and habits. And of course, looking at the previous presentation, we should make an effort also to teach the locals about these newcomers' culture. He believes, and I agree with him, that the more asylum seekers understand the local culture, the less friction there will be with the locals. The asylum reception center is open to the community, and there's an open and dialogue going on. Many of the reception centers here were built, let's say, far away from the municipality, from the city, and that's not a good thing, in my opinion. The Swanside is about 9 kilometers from the city of Mikkeli. Leppa says that a very good model for Finland would be to use the German model. In Germany, asylum seekers are kept at a camp for 1 year, and then they are sent to the municipality to take care of them. And he says that this is a very good way of a good practice. Okay, let's move on then. Of course, the knee-jerk reaction we had in Finland about so many migrants was that, oh, and by the way, let me go back real fast, that the experience that the Red Cross got, and the municipalities and some private companies from the asylum reception, from the asylum seekers phase, has now taught them a lot about good practices on how to deal with the situation. I think they know they have staff that is experienced, and they have good contacts with staff, who could work and with them and so forth. Okay, so the problem was that since there was such an angry reaction by some, we had at the time, this anti-immigration party I showed you, the True Finns, Perussuomalaiset, they were in government. So their idea was, hey, let's just do away with pull factors and we'll resolve the matter. So the question I have for Lithuania is this: if you have asylum seekers coming to your country, what do you want to do with them? Do you want to tell them not to come here? Or do you want to treat them, with human rights and treat them dignantly? Okay, but anyway, that the law was stiffened in 2016, 2015, and then 2016. So they took away, free legal representation from migrants. Appeal times were shortened. There were further administrative restrictions. Deportations to countries were easier now. Family reunification guidelines were tightened. So what does this mean? It means that if you in order to bring your wife or husband and 2 children to Finland, you have to make 2,600 euros a month after taxes. Now, a minority of Finns make that much money. So, and since migrants make less money than Finns, native Finns or white Finns, you can understand the challenges there. Then a very sad thing, which was a very negative thing in my opinion, was that resident permits were abolished on humanitarian grounds. What does this mean? It means that basically that if you have an asylum seeker and you can't determine if he's really an asylum seeker, that he is, oppressed and his life is in danger in the country, but then you can't send him back because the country is a total mess, it's at war, then you would give him a resident permit on humanitarian grounds, which means that you say, okay, we'll give you a residence permit for 1 year and we'll see what happens after a year. Now, what does that mean? When they did away with that, the number of undocumented migrants in Finland rose from about 300 to 1,000 or even to 3,000 estimate. And then another sad thing, and let me show you this one here. That picture on the left side is a really sad picture. Probably some of you think, hey, is she in Syria or is she in Iraq or whatever? No, she's in Finland. And this has been one of the problems in Finland, is that they still detain minors and families with minors indefinitely. And this is something that Amnesty International has also brought to attention. Real fast thing, undocumented migrants, it's good that you have services for them. We have the Global Clinic, we have the Paperittomat Hanke, and here you can get legal services, you can get medical help, and like that from these volunteers. Okay, so restoring human rights. Free legal representation was restored in 2021. So you see all those tightening that we did. We thought that this would be the way to solve our asylum seeker problem, are now being scaled back. So that was restored because it's a human right, to get a lawyer and to be informed about your case. Okay, deadlines and appeals back to 30 days from 21 days and so forth. And then the family reunification law will be changed also. And this is very important because Finland is a country that respects human rights, family rights, and children's rights. So if you make it impossible for children to bring their parents here, that doesn't help the well-being of the minor. Okay, let's continue. Education. This is the school I teach at. It's Ottawa Folk High School in Ottawa, which is about 14 kilometers south of Mikkeli. And guess what? I think Finland has a pretty good system here, that the idea is that you have asylum seekers. So what they try to do is they help them adapt and be part of society by giving them the opportunity to study at education at a learning institute. Here they study for the comprehensive school degree. Once they get that, they can then go to vocational school, and then if they get a residence permit later on, they have already done quite a lot to adapt to this country and be part of society. Of course, it's not easy, but we have at that school we have close to many nationalities, mostly from Afghanistan and from Somalia and Syria, and they all get along just fine. I mean, they're all learning Finnish. Through our classes, they get a view of what kind of society we are, and so forth. And another important thing is that childcare services are offered. Okay, if your child is 7 and you're an asylum seeker, automatically you can go to school. Okay, because they're at school age. But then some cities like Helsinki will offer daycare for children of asylum seekers. In Mikkeli, where I live, it is done on a family-by-family basis. But I think that these are very important. Another important thing, the city of Helsinki will start anti-racism training for its teachers. It's important. We all grow up with prejudices and our environment can be very racist, and this affects us, and we have to sort of like take a step back and look at it and try to change that, or control it, or put it in some place where it won't lead. Okay, one last thing. Okay, now the media, I think this is the problem in Sweden from the last talk, is that if you look at the picture on the lower right, that's the newsroom of the Helsinki Sanomat, which would be like the biggest paper in Finland, news staff. Now, can you see any minority there? Do you see any Black person, any person of color? No. Even if they may be well-intentioned and so forth, there's a lack of diversity in the newsroom. And this, of course, impacts a lot the kinds of stories that are written, the slant. Well, as you know, there are many dominant narratives about asylum seekers. Should I mention them? Threat to security, their culture is incompatible with ours. The native population will become a minority. There's no gender inequality. Sexual assault crimes increase. Best practices in such a toxic dialogue are facts, in my opinion. One must be persistent, even creative, but one must be very headstrong. You have to be really determined to challenge these things. And if those who have been doing this anti-racism work for many years, notice that they're the same talking points, but they're just done differently. It's like that. Oh, by the way, one of the things we're proud of at Migrant Tales was that in 2016, there was in Lapland, in the northern part of Finland, there was the Kolari Asylum Reception Centers, and the asylum seekers there were complaining about the deputy manager, who they claimed was racist. Racist in the sense that he charged everything for, if they wanted the tomato from the canteen, they had to pay for the tomato. And the person is today a candidate for that Finns party, the anti-immigration party. Well, anyway, I got in touch with the local paper, Lapin Kansa, and with the people at the Asylum Reception Center. I said, okay, you guys want to, he said they were going to have a protest, a demonstration. Okay, I'll write about that. I'll get in touch with Lapin Kansa, and we'll do a big show about this. And guess what? In 2 days, he got fired. So, the power of the word is very strong, very powerful, very strong, and you can use it to your favor. Okay, last thing, dominant counter narratives. So the interesting thing I ask is, this is a long project. You're not going to change attitudes in 1 day or 1 week, but it maybe take generations and things like that. By the way, in Sweden, in Stockholm, for example, the Finns were like the deviants of all the immigrants back in the 70s. If there was any crime, it was the Finns' fault, and so forth. So what the Finnish government did was, or the embassy in Stockholm, they called the managing editors and editors of those papers and spoke to them and got to know them and so forth. So that could be one way of also challenging negative narratives. Okay, since we are all EU nations, we all are bound by human rights. So those things should be our guiding light. In Finland, we have social equality. We're a Nordic country, and we have to further this. So it's social equality plus equity. These are really important. Emphasizing human and Muslim normalization, creating Muslim space, challenging distorted representations, and so forth. This is all a very long process, but I think, like for me, why do I write? I was a journalist for over 20 years, but why do I write at Migrant Tales? I read some of the stuff and my blood starts to boil. I'm sorry. So the only way I can calm myself is by sitting down and writing. And sort of like putting the whole thing into better perspective. But I'm ready to answer any questions you may have. And like I said, thank you very much for this opportunity. Is that the way you say in Lithuania? Ačiū?
Yeah, the same. Ačiū.
Okay.
Ačiū, Enrique. Thank you for your presentation and the important ties to Lithuania. I see many similarities between the situation in Finland in 2015 and the situation in Lithuania in 2021. Do we have any questions? Quinfo just write it that please don't stop, Enrique.
Okay.
Please don't stop to work. Do your work. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see here. Okay. Well, if they're, like I said, you know, Otto Leppa, the head of the, but I mean, since you're working with the Red Cross, they have a very good network. And you can get lots of good practices, you know, best practices from them. But I think that if you're going to have like, how many asylum seekers do you have in Lithuania right now?
This year for 4,200.
Okay, so it's not
for now.
Yeah, for now. And this is from last 3 years, 5 years?
It's about 10 times higher.
Yeah, 10 times higher. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think that, you know, the first thing is, I think that these things about the Asylum Reception Center, getting qualified staff, making sure that they're active. Can they study at schools, you know, in Lithuania? So what do you want? I mean, what is the message you want to give them? Do you want to tell them, get out of here? I'm going to make your life impossible. We're going to, you know, tighten immigration laws so you leave. If that's the message, then you're going to fail. But if your idea is, okay, you're here, we'll treat you with dignity, you know, human rights, and maybe you might even become a member of our society in the future. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you a lot. Do we have any questions for Enrique? I see that the time is running out, and now we have a short break for 10 minutes. And please come back in 10 minutes at 11:40, and we will have the last presentation of our conference.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. I'll just see if I can figure out the technical side of things here. Okay. Okay. Well, hello, and thank you so much for inviting me to talk here today. This is actually my first time in Lithuania. Thanks to the organizers of the conference and the technical staff, and of course the translators as well. So first of all, I should say something about the work that we do at Kvinfo. Kvinfo is Denmark's knowledge centre for gender, gender equality and diversity. We're a national and international hub for research, knowledge and information about the contemporary gender equality debate. We collect and disseminate knowledge, and through advocacy, we attempt to qualify the public debate. We also carry out a number of our own programs, and one of those, which we carry out on the national level, is Kvinfo's Mentor Network. And that's a mentoring program which helps women immigrants and refugees to gain a foothold on the Danish labour market. So Kvinfo's Mentor Network began in 2002. This is actually a photograph here from a Christmas baking event where we had a celebrity chef come and visit. So that was a really fun day. But the story of how we began explains to a large degree why we are the kind of program that we are today. We began first on the ground, so to speak. We wanted to expand the work that we were doing at CUNFO concerning gender equality in relation to migrant communities. So what we did was we began by asking immigrant women themselves what they most needed and what they thought that we could do to help. And their resounding answer was, we need jobs. So we considered how we could best use our own resources to help. And because we have such a wide contact base in Danish society, we saw the possibility of creating a nationwide network of women who would be willing on a voluntary basis to become mentors and to advise immigrant women about how to go about getting jobs in Denmark, telling them about Danish work culture, the Danish education system, and about the Danish labour market in general. So we built our program around the following core elements at the bottom of the page. First of all, it's completely voluntary. All the mentees and all the mentors who sign up to the program are all volunteers. We base our methods and approach on knowledge about our target group, the challenges that they meet on the labour market, and what does or doesn't work in terms of national integration programs. We also maintain a focus on gender. Women are more disadvantaged than men in terms of getting jobs and building careers, because generally speaking, they encounter more barriers and challenges than men do. And finally, we use flexible and participatory methods. Flexibility is crucial because each woman is different and has different challenges to overcome. And the mentor relationship is based, therefore, on participatory methods. It's important that the mentor and the mentee are placed on an equal footing. The mentor shouldn't dictate to the mentee what she must do, and the mentee shouldn't be passive. Rather, they should work together in order to reach the goals that the mentee has chosen herself. So in this way, the mentor relationship is not a one-way street. There's no power hierarchy here whereby the mentor teaches the mentee. The participatory format of mentoring involves meeting, sharing, and learning between equal partners. And the voluntary aspect of the program enables this. Unlike compulsory job-seeking programs that migrants are forced to attend when they receive unemployment benefits, here the mentee knows that the mentor is genuinely there for her, that she is curious to meet her, she respects her wishes, and that essentially she's simply interested in helping out. So the respect is reciprocal. The mentor knows that the mentee recognizes that she has valuable insights into the Danish job market, which she then knows that she can benefit from when she is looking for a job. And actually, many of our mentors and mentees continue after their mentorship ends to meet as friends. I'll just play a video so you can hear, excuse me. So you can hear from the women themselves. If I can figure it out. Okay. The video is in Danish, but for those of you whose Danish is rusty, there are fortunately subtitles in English.
Min mentor har hjulpet mig i alt. Men først og fremmest var det meget hjælp med at finde et rigtigt job for mig i Danmark, hvor jeg kunne bruge min erfaring fra internationale selskaber i Rusland og min uddannelse. Vi gennemgik sammen mit CV og mine ansøgninger. For eksempel i Rusland, der skal man ikke smile på sit billede i CV, men hun sagde, at det er helt normalt, at i Danmark skal det være en smilet billede.
Det er et visitkort fra min egen vej, Kvindefri i Odense. Jeg var oppe ved biblioteket, Voldemors bibliotek, hvor der var alt muligt med mentor og mentee-forhold, så tænkte jeg, okay, hvad er det? Så snakkede jeg med Jamal, og så gav hun mig den her. Og så tænker jeg, normalt plejer jeg bare at smide dem væk, for at være helt ærlig. Jeg beholder dem ikke rigtigt, men så, jeg ved ikke, alt det hun sagde, det fangede mig rigtig meget, og så jeg den, og så tænkte jeg, okay, hvad er det her? Lad mig lige undersøge det, og så var det så, der hele rejsen startede-agtigt. Så det er lidt vigtigt for mig. Jeg har været en, der klarer mig selv typisk, fordi jeg kommer fra en stor familie, hvor jeg er den ældste. Så jeg er den, der tager ansvar for andre og sådan noget, men jeg har aldrig følt, at der har været en, der tog ansvar for mig, hvis man kan sige det sådan.
Nu har jeg en mentor, som er en vidunderlig kvinde, nogle par år yngre end mig, højere end mig, som dog levevis vinker så godt sammen. Fra den et var klart for begge to, at det skulle ikke være noget, som der var kun en, der skulle give. Nej, begge to skulle berige hinanden. Vi har faktisk haft i vores bagtanke, at vi skulle tage en tur i biografen og se en af de 2 film, som der er nu, med massmixen, som vi to er helt vilde med. Vi synes, at hendes lever er super.
Jeg har faktisk fået et job, og det er mit drømmejob, hvor jeg kan bruge min erfaring fra Rusland af. Det er et forsikringsselskab, hvor jeg bruger min erfaring og min uddannelse, og er rigtig glad for det.
Det, der gav mig sådan styrken og viljen til at kunne undersøge det nærmere, og så finde ud af, hvad det var, jeg ville, og så ender jeg så heroppe, hvor jeg vil, hvor jeg har haft 5 forskellige jobs på et år, og der har aldrig før haft, ved hvad jeg skal på uni nu, hvor jeg skal flytte for første gang, og klare mig selv, og jeg har bare fået så meget selvtillid, og det er jo helt vildt, altså. Så det er derfor, jeg har den stadig. Ja.
Det, der skete godt, det var min sidste eksamensdag, og det var engelsk på B-niveau, hvor jeg fik en flot udtale. Og så det vil sige, at jeg bestod min studentereksamen. Og på fredag er jeg klar til translokation sammen med min mentor. Fordi det er ikke kun mig, der bestod, det er vi to, der bestod.
Okay. So we just met Inna from Russia, Fartun from Somalia, and Hildenise from Brazil, who are just 3 of our many mentees. And let's see if this works. Yes. Okay, having a little difficulty here, but I think I'll just have to start from the beginning. Okay, so since the program began back in 2002, we've had approximately 9,000 participants, mentees and mentors, and we make on average about 200 matches per year between mentees and mentors. The figure was, of course, a lot lower during the Corona crisis because we had a whole series of local lockdowns and restrictions. But now, fortunately, things are beginning to pick up again. Kvinfo's mentor program was actually originally intended for women immigrants with high levels of education. But since 2019, we've shifted our focus so that we now primarily work with women immigrants and refugees who are long-term unemployed, have lower levels of education, and in general, a greater number of challenges, and also live in deprived housing areas. They're much further from the labour market than our previous target group, and most have been living in Denmark for over 10 years. We have coordinators who work in 5 cities across the country. We'll be expanding to new areas in Copenhagen next year. And what we do is we team up with local actors who work with people in a number of deprived social housing estates, with job centres and comprehensive social housing plans. These are initiatives to improve local areas through various measures, like physical renovation and social activities and organisations and so on. So today, a lot of our mentees are referred to as by local job centres. And our coordinators, they recruit and make matches between the mentors and mentees. They hold introductions to our programme and arrange various job-oriented social activities. People used to contact us ad hoc to join our programme. Typically, they would hear about us through word of mouth, or they would see some adverts. But today, because we work with a different group of women, we found that we need to place a greater focus on recruitment. So this is why we now have locally based coordinators who cooperate with the job centres and the social housing plans. They also connect with local clubs and associations. You can see some of our results on the right-hand side of the page, and perhaps I could also mention that since we began, the programme's been introduced and adapted to suit local conditions in 30 countries around the world. To illustrate just how great the need is for helping women immigrants into jobs, here's a graph that shows the employment rates for men and women immigrants and for people with Danish origin. The top 2 lines show the employment rate for people of Danish origin, and the 2 lines below show the employment rate for immigrants from so-called Western countries. These are the EU countries plus America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Bottom 2 lines show the employment rate for immigrants from so-called non-Western countries, which covers all the other countries in the world. So for each of these groups, we can see that there is a gender gap. Men, in all cases, have a higher rate of employment than women, but the gender gap is significantly bigger among non-Western immigrants. Women immigrants from non-Western countries, that's the orange line at the bottom, they have by far the lowest rate of employment. And the graph illustrates quite well that women immigrants and refugees are doubly challenged. They pay a price for being both women and immigrants. For example, they are overrepresented in jobs and sectors which are characterized by physical labor, low wages, part-time and temporary employment, skewed working hours, low job quality, low job security, and low possibilities for promotion and occupational training. There are, of course, large differences within the group, which is officially described as non-Western immigrants and refugees. We need to not only consider gender, but also age, level of education, how long people have lived in Denmark, and what their grounds for residence is, whether they're in the country for work, study, or whether they are family reunified or refugees. All these factors and more have a very big effect on immigrants' employment rates. This chart here shows that country of origin also makes a big difference to the employment rates. Women who come from countries countries which have large numbers of refugees, to the right-hand side, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and Somalia, they have a much tougher time getting jobs. So whilst the gender gap is bigger for some countries than others, we can't assume that these differences are culturally based. There may be an element of that, but the causes are far, far more complex. So in the Danish debate on immigration, we see a range of racial stereotypes in operation, according to migrants' country or continent of origin, and also their religion. And these stereotypes are gendered and often sexualized. Since the attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon on September 11th, 2001, we've experienced increasing Islamophobia in Denmark, and with the increase in flows of migration from the Middle East, particularly from Syria in 2015 to 17, anti-immigration discourse in Denmark, as in most of Europe and the Western world, is nowadays most fiercely directed towards Muslim migrants and refugees. Women, immigrants and refugees are often portrayed in the media. On the right-hand side is a typical image that you see, typical photograph in media representations. And they're often portrayed in the media and the political debate as a homogeneous group, which is, of course, as we've just seen, complete nonsense. The most prevalent and widespread stereotypes of these women are based on notions of their victimization through belonging to what is perceived as a backwards culture. The hijab, the Muslim scarf, is often seen as a symbol of this. By the way, the burqa was banned in Denmark in 2018. So stereotypical images of immigrant women are actually often used to explain why so many are out of work. According to the stereotype, women don't work because they don't want to, because they see themselves only as mothers, as fulfilling a childbearing or maternal role, or they don't work because their husbands and families won't let them work. In other words, they're passive victims of social control or of a backwards cultural religion. Another stereotype is that women immigrants have no desire to participate in society in general, and they only wish to remain within their own small enclave or parallel society. Immigrants are also often accused of what's known as welfare tourism. They migrate solely to reap the benefits of richer countries' welfare systems. And added to this is the suspicion of radicalization. We've just had a very big debate in Denmark around the return of 3 women ISIS supporters and their 14 children, all of them Danish citizens from an internment camp in Syria. However, research shows something very different. And as the previous speakers have pointed out, facts are important in combating racism. Research shows that women immigrants do, in fact, want to work, and that migrant groups in Denmark actually have a particularly strong work ethic compared to the majority ethnic group. This is also our own experience from all the women that Kvinfo has worked with over the years. So here are some examples from different studies which have been conducted in Denmark. An extremely high proportion, 94% of people in Denmark, and that's across gender and ethnicity, want to work and to support themselves. Of course, again, there are differences between groups, but generally speaking, this shows a very high level of motivation to work. Over 2/3 of people belonging to ethnic minorities believe that it's embarrassing to receive money that they haven't worked for. In other words, social benefits. And that's compared to only half of the ethnic majority. And compared to the ethnic majority, there are considerably there's a considerably larger proportion of people belonging to ethnic minority groups who believe that work should be prioritized over leisure. So we can see that compared to the ethnic majority, work is really highly valued among ethnic minorities. There's a strong traditional work ethic, and that receiving social benefits is actually stigmatized by a large proportion of people. There's really not much evidence of welfare tourism here. In addition to that, research shows that most people who belong to ethnic minorities believe that it's important for their husband or wife to have a job. This figure, 89% of immigrants from non-Western countries, is notably higher again than the figure for the ethnic majority. And only a small minority, in fact, believe that women with children should not work. The figure here, as you see, is not too far away from that for the ethnic majority. And moreover, approximately half of those interviewed belonging to ethnic minorities held views which were consistently supportive of gender equality. So this is nothing like the stereotype. The breakdown between gender to the right at the bottom there is interesting. Women in both groups, we can see, perhaps not surprisingly, have views which are more supportive of gender equality. The proportion of men of Danish origin who hold views which are consistently supportive of gender equality is actually very close to the proportion of ethnic minority women. Women of Danish origin are the group which most supports gender equality. When it comes to patriarchal attitudes, these are more widespread within ethnic minority communities, but even so, it's a small minority who holds such views consistently. In any case, all these figures contest the stereotypical view that so few ethnic minority women have jobs because they are either willingly or unwillingly stuck in traditional gender roles and subject to patriarchal oppression. Again, that's not to say that traditional gender roles, family patterns, and patriarchal attitudes don't exist or don't have a negative effect on employment rates, because of course they do. But the point I'm making is that the stereotypical image of ethnic minority women as all being subjected to this is neither accurate, and nor can it provide an answer as to why so many women don't work. So then the question is, why are so many immigrant and refugee women outside the labour market? And our research at Kvinfo shows that there is a whole series of barriers to the inclusion of women, immigrants and refugees on the Danish labour market. These can be individual or structural and can be divided into three groups, as I've done here: human capital, social capital, and structural inequalities. The barriers listed here are not exhaustive, and of course will vary from one individual to another. I think I'll just start at the bottom of the page just to be a little bit different. There are a number of structural inequalities on the Danish labour market, which also act as barriers to women immigrants' employment. To save time, I won't discuss all of them. I'll just pick out a few. Firstly, that we have quite large levels of gender and ethnic segregation on the Danish labour market. This exists both vertically in terms of the professional hierarchy or professional status of jobs, as well as horizontally, in the same way that certain jobs are seen as being women's or men's work. There's also an overrepresentation of ethnic minorities in certain branches and sectors on the labour market. For women immigrants, there's a strong overrepresentation of people working in hotels and restaurants, in the cleaning branches, and in social institutions and healthcare. This strong segregation means that it's difficult for immigrants to enter other parts of the labour market, and that the potential job market for immigrant women is more narrow than it could otherwise be. Long periods of time spent waiting in the asylum system has also been documented by researchers in Denmark to have a negative effect on levels of employment. And stringent rules for permanent residence can also make getting jobs more difficult. Employers are less likely to consider someone with temporary residence for a job because of the risk, quite simply, that they might leave. Discrimination is widespread. One study done recently, for example, showed that ethnic minority women who wear a hijab have to send out 60% more job applications to get called into a job interview. So where the Mentor Network can make the most difference is in the two areas above, although we do attempt to make a difference through advocacy in relation to all the structural inequalities, of course. In trying to increase women's social capital and human capital, what we do is matching mentees with mentors who can, by drawing on their own experience, provide them with knowledge about how to improve their job chances. This is also why they differ from job consultants or coaches. So then we focus on helping the mentees to increase their human capital and social networks. And at the same time, in developing networks between ethnic minorities and the ethnic majority, we also work to question and break down stereotypes about immigrant women, because the negative image of immigrants constitutes in itself a significant barrier to successful entry into the labour market. In terms of human capital, qualifications, a small group of refugees in Denmark is highly educated, but the large majority have only a very basic level of education. Studies show that many foreigners are overqualified in their jobs. Foreign education is often considered as being of a lower standard and difficult to transfer to the Danish labour market. Immigrants who take an education in Denmark are far more likely to get a job than people with foreign qualifications. So our mentors help mentees to decide on which paths they can take in order to achieve their professional goals. But alongside these requirements of hard qualifications, which are often lacking among our mentees, our mentors also help them to recognize the soft skills that they possess and which can also open doors for them on the job market. For instance, whether they're good at working on teams, at organizing, at talking to people, or if they do voluntary work, or if they have other special interests and abilities. Language skills, many migrants lack the Danish language skills required by employers, so language training is absolutely crucial. In Denmark, we have free language courses for newly arrived immigrants for up to 5 years, but there's often a need for more than this and longer term. One problem is that many immigrants who are long-term unemployed don't have many opportunities to practice their language skills, and many of the jobs that immigrants can get don't help them to develop their language skills. People who are hired in cleaning jobs, for example, they don't get the chance to practice their Danish because they mostly work alone or perhaps with other foreigners. And what we find in our program is that our mentees are often interested in training their Danish language skills in conversations with their mentors. And this in turn also helps to develop their confidence. In terms of social capital or social networks, most women immigrants and refugees, when they arrive in Denmark, lack the kind of social network that's crucial for getting a job. Kvinfo's Mentor Network is a bridge building initiative. We bring people together and build networks both within minority communities and, crucially, across or between ethnic minority and majority communities. And this helps women immigrants onto the labour market because a very large number of jobs on the Danish labour market are filled through informal recruitment channels. One recent study showed that 1/3 of non-Western immigrants actually find their first job in Denmark through a network. In comparison, only 8% find a job through a job centre. But one problem is that informal recruitment channels tend to be ethnically stratified. Many immigrants get jobs through contacts with people from the same country of origin as themselves. But because of high levels of ethnic segregation in the labour market, this means that some branches and types of jobs will be harder for immigrants to access. So making that bridge across to people who belong to the ethnic majority can open up far more job opportunities for immigrant and refugee women. It may also gradually help to erode stereotypes of men and women immigrants. Hopefully, it will establish new impressions and dismantle old prejudices. And when immigrant women do get jobs, they often become role models within their own communities. Families are lifted out of poverty and social mobility increases for children. After succeeding in reaching their goals, many of our old mentees have in fact themselves become mentors and now help others in the same way. And this for us is a true measure of the programme's success. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene, a lot for your eye-opening presentation, deconstructing dominating narratives that we have in Lithuania too. If someone wants to share their experience in working in migration field in Lithuania and what difficulties or joys you have, you can do it now. And we have several questions. And the first one is from Lena. And she asks, how long does the mentoring activities last? What percentage of women assisted by mentors still do not find work?
Right. The mentor relationship varies quite a bit from person to person. Usually it's from about 6 months to 12 months long. And again, as I mentioned, a lot of mentees and mentors who are matched together, they do actually become friends and continue seeing one another after that period is over. During that period, we provide support if there's any difficulties, but after that period, they do their own thing if they wish.
Yeah, and the second part of the question was, what percentage of women assisted by mentors still do not find work?
Yeah, well, since we changed to a new target group in 2019, which have a greater number of challenges, we have far more refugees in that group now. And also we've had difficulties because of COVID. So things have been difficult for a while, but I think on average, we have around 20 to 25% success rate in terms of people getting into jobs during the mentorship. Unfortunately, we don't have records of how many people get into jobs after the mentoring relationship is done. Sometimes we hear about it, but we don't always hear about it. So hopefully the actual figures of success will be much higher than that.
Thank you. And we have one more question from Enrique. And he asks, how do you think Denmark's anti-Muslim discourse impacts employment among Muslim, especially women?
It makes it far more difficult for both Muslim men and Muslim women to get work, especially Muslim women. I mean, in terms of Muslim men, a lot of the stereotypes circulating are to do with the idea that that they will commit crime or that they are untrustworthy in some way or other. They may potentially be radicalized again. And yeah, in terms of women, it's much harder again because, as I mentioned, women wearing the Muslim scarf have to apply for 60% times more. They have to send in 60% times more applications before they get called into a job interview. I believe that for women who didn't wear a scarf in the same study, but who had a Middle Eastern sounding name, they had to send in approximately 18% more applications in order to get called to a job interview. So the scarf makes a difference because, of course, it's a strong symbol of otherness in that sense. But so are names, and yeah, it's there are huge. There's a huge impact from these stereotypes on their work and on their lives in general.
We have one more question from Luca. How did you inspire the civic society to volunteer at the Mentor Network program? Do you know about long-term effects, both economic and social, on foreign women participants who has gone through the Mentors Network program?
Okay, I'll answer the second part first. Yeah, we don't actually measure. We have no evaluation measures in place for the long-term effects, but we do see over the years that many of our mentees are in jobs, and of course, simply getting jobs means that people's finances are better. The first part
about inspiring the civic society to volunteer in your organization.
Yeah, that's well, at the beginning of our program, that was really very easy. In fact, I think it took about 1 or just 2 days from sending an email out among the network of people that we already had at Kvinfo, asking if anybody wished to be a mentor for immigrant women. And we got about 300 responses right away, just after 2 days, from Danish women who just wanted to help immigrant women in any way they could as a mentor. Things have changed in our program since, and again, it's become more difficult with a new target group. Word of mouth doesn't travel so quickly, and there is quite a lot of ethnic stratification among the minority groups living in these deprived housing areas also. So what we do is we mostly, through cooperating with job centres and social housing plans, we actually get women referred to us for the program as mentees. And then we, through using adverts in local newspapers and social media, we can also recruit mentors who can then be more specifically matched to the mentees according to what their preferences and interests are.
We have one more question from Enrique. Do you think that if Denmark enforced seriously its discrimination laws, matters would change in a positive direction?
That's an excellent question. Well, a lot of the current laws are very much, yeah, whether or not they're compatible with human rights is up for debate. They push things way beyond the yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that actually, because it would require changing immigration laws. Yeah, it's a very difficult question to answer.
And we have one more question written in Lithuanian. I'll translate it. Was it a case in all cases that the employment was a long term, and were there any women that came back to your organization again?
I think some people have returned to find a new mentor after a period of time if they haven't had luck. But I don't know much more about that. But I can, if anyone wants to contact me, I can get some more information from my colleagues.
And I have a closing question. Why is it important to see migrants not as a homogeneous group, but to see it in a complex and diverse way, and to address each of them directly, from your experience?
Well, the minute we regard any people as a homogeneous group of people is when the danger of stereotypes comes into the picture. And people aren't homogeneous. That's the whole problem behind the nationalist myth of, for instance, Denmark as a homogeneous country. We are all the same. And the others come in, and they're the problem. They're different than us. They don't belong. These kind of discourses are very dangerous. It's important to see the facts behind those myths, the myth of homogeneity, if you like. And only when we start looking at the facts and looking at the reality of the situation, and also listening to those people, to the people that it concerns, hearing their voices instead of talking about them all the time. Only when we start doing that can we really gain an understanding of the situation and of how we can improve that in society. That's what I think.
Thank you a lot, Charlene. And I want to thank all the panelists for the significant and inspiring insights. And I also want to thank all the listeners who spent these 3 hours together with us. And I hope that it was interesting for you and you'll implement some of the tools you heard to your daily work in migration field. If you have any more questions, you can write it directly to Diversity Development Group. The email is info@diversitydevelopmentgroup.lt, or directly to the panelists. They have shared their emails in our chat box. And this event was in the frame of the project Lifelong Learning Approach in the Asylum, Migration and Integration Processes. And the aim of the project is to apply lifelong learning approach in the asylum, migration and integration process in Lithuania, and according to the holistic program of education, and to improve competences of specialists working in the field of migration and migrants integration. And it was organized by the NGO Diversity Development Group and moderated by me, Indrek Tessieri, from a nonprofit media organization called NARE. Thank you all again, and see you in other conferences. And I wish you luck.